Good morning and welcome to Dugout Dialog. I'm your co-host, Blake.
And I'm your co host, Matt. And on today's episode, we're excited to talk about some diamonds in the rough, rapid fire questions around the league, and what we're watching this weekend.
Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned diamonds. We have a couple people we want to highlight here, Matt, that have definitely been that sharp. We have been tasked with finding a hitter and a pitcher to really bring to the audience and let them know what they're doing around the league. And you've got a pitcher here that is flying under the radar and is not a big, sexy name, but he's doing great things. Who did you decide that would be a pitcher worth noting here?
I decided to go with a Kansas City Royal, and I went with Seth Lugo. Definitely not someone that I would have pegged as an ERA leader this year,
Hmm.
but he did break out last year. So to kind of recap, a little bit of his career, I mean, he was drafted in the 34th round by the New York Mets, has pretty much spent the entirety of his career there. He was initially, kind of put in a position as a starter, but I think in his first go around had an ERA north of 4, close to 5, and so they just kind of decided to move him to the bullpen. And he kind of was that guy. He was a solid bullpen piece who would get spot starts, but I guess not someone that like I truly thought was ever going to get back to the rotation, but that
Mm-hmm.
was his desire. And the Padres gave him that opportunity last year, and then just kind of ran
Yep.
with it.
Hmm.
Just one quote that he had about himself when asked about, you know, um, why not staying with the Mets? He said, basically, I was a question mark. I hadn't started in so long. And I even didn't know what I was capable of. So it's understandable. Like he was very
Hmm.
cerebral and aware of like what he meant to the Mets as far as
Yeah.
a bullpen piece, a solid one. But, he really wanted something more than that. When you think of
Mhm.
Seth Lugo, what do you remember, recall, or think of?
Well, I think that his comment with the New York Post it says a lot about the mindset. If you got a team that doesn't believe in your abilities or is not in line with what you think your vision is as a player, it could be you could be really disgruntled, as a person. If you want to be a starter and you're only a reliever, I'm sure you're going to communicate that to the team, but it can be mentally debilitating to be able to, shift your focus because those have two very different roles. I love to see what he's doing in Kansas City, and Kansas City is sneaky good this season. And so with him being that leader for that starting rotation, it's pretty incredible what he's doing in a short period of time.
I'm just excited about him because there's still guys who aspire for more. Like,
Hmm.
I think of him. I think of Jordan Wicks, Jordan Hicks, Sean Manea. There's lots of guys that were more bullpen last year and have just
Hmm.
stepped into that starter's role and are capitalizing. Now, in his case, he is doing it unlike anyone else. He has currently pitched more innings than any starter at 59.2 innings. He has out of it 9 starts, 8 of them are quality starts. He has a
That's impressive.
1.66 ERA, 1.8 walks per nine, and 7.2 Ks per nine. I mean, he's on an absolute tear. And in his last start, he went 8 innings, 1 earned run, 12 Ks. And just to kind of throw out like his repertoire, you know, I put a note here that he has all the tools and he's learned how to use them. He's like a Swiss Army knife. When I was a kid, I
Yeah.
didn't use all the individual tools because I didn't know how to use them. He knows it. So he throws a four seam, a sinker, a curve, a slider, a slurve, a changeup, a cutter, a sweeper. He's got it all and he knows how to use it. So it's just been fun to watch his improvement. But aside from pitching, um, you have a hitter that you highlighted. Tell me a little bit more about the guy you selected as your hitter.
Yeah, so there's a lot of people in MLB that are hitting really well right now. Some of the honorable mentions would be Kevin Newman, Aaron Judge, Vladdy Jr., Shohei and Mookie just being themselves. But the player that I'm going to highlight today is actually Bryson Scott of the Phillies, drafted in 2019, first round, number 14 overall pick. The guy's still young. He's learning on the fly. But what I like is in the last 15 games, 44 at bats, 17 runs, 18 hits, 3 home runs, 18 RBIs. Get this, 16 walks, which is just crazy. Six strikeouts, like to be a little lower, but he's also got nine stolen bases. So that's totaling a 409 average during that time. And in the last 7 games, 19 at bats, 8 runs, 9 hits, 1 home run, 11 RBIs in 7 games. Crazy. With 9 walks and only 1 strikeout. I love to see that. It's going to be a testament to a complete player to be able to not only understand and carry situational hitting, but be able to create havoc on the bases. So with that, 4 stolen bases, only 1 home run, I mean, nine base on balls and 11 RBIs. That is a guy who is dialed in as a hitter. He's seeing pitches. He's helping the team by being productive on the base pass. And the nice part is that he's got so much power behind him on that team. He doesn't have to be something he's not. He can be the kind of guy that slaps the ball around and creates chaos on the base pass. But with Bryson Scott, what are your thoughts on what he's bringing to the table with the Phillies right now?
Yeah, I think he's someone that's usually classified as like a, more of a hitter than he is a power guy. But
Sure.
I guess that's kind of like seen as abnormal in today's baseball because you have so many guys selling out for the, the high arcing angles and the deep balls.
Yep.
I don't know. I think it's great and refreshing, but also like he's blown up. Maybe that was the cause of like why he kind of fell off a little bit last year, and he's kind of rekindled that this year. So I would say like whatever he's decided to change or a tweak he's made, like getting contact and getting on base is really what matters, and just kind of
Yep.
picking your spots where maybe he becomes more of a pull hitter that he can get some extra home runs, but just getting the ball in play is really what's most important for his team and for just again just scoring in general.
Yeah, as you said earlier, it isn't sexy to not hit home runs, but I always try to find players that, again, I'm always going to preach this, that go gap to gap, that create a different dimension on the field. If you're just one dimensional with the big A button loopy swing, that can only get you so far. Being a five-tool player is something that you're looking for, and a lot of these young guys are just so dang athletic. That you don't have to swing out of your shoes. You could be very successful in the big leagues by starting to flash those tools.
I agree. And so, I mean, like there are other guys that I know you highlighted here with Kevin Newman, Aaron Judge, and Vladdy Jr. and Mookie. Like there are other great hitters that are doing wonderful things. But, I would say he probably is an under the radar guy, especially even on his own team, because having Bryce Harper there. So I think that's a great diamond in the rough. And with that, let's segment and move over to our rapid fire questions. So with this, I will put a timer here and you've got 1 minute to answer my questions here. I'll add some additional juice with this, but I'll throw the question to you and let you run with it. Ready?
Fire away.
Okay. Ronel Blanco, Houston starting pitcher, received and accepted a 10-game suspension for illegal substance on his glove using rosin, which is legal. Was it warranted?
Oh man, the hard part about this is it doesn't look good for the Astros because the Angel fan in me is always going to remember trash can banging. The hard part with this is that you can't play dumb. And one of my favorite quotes is from the first base umpire, and he goes, "That's one of the stickiest substances that I've seen on a glove," which says a lot. Is it warranted? Look, cheating is cheating. Rosin may be available to a pitcher, but in the mixture of sweat and rosin, it does create an adhesive. The fact that he did not contest it tells me that he feels that he's in the wrong, and I'm glad that he feels that way.
Yeah, just for the casual viewer out there, rosin is made from resin, which comes usually from plants and trees. And so when you think of like you go to like the sap of a tree, it's very sticky. That's the resin. And it's just kind of dried out. So that's what pitchers have on the mound when they're picking up that bag. They're picking up that bag and you see like a little bit of powder. That's the rosin that they're using. And Trevor Bauer famously did a video where he took a baseball with rosin and sweat combined, and he put the baseball in his hand. It just kind of stayed in his hand and wouldn't fall out. So it is a sticky enough substance, but yeah, I mean, cheating's cheating. And if you've gone too far, I do think it's warranted. Moving to question number Two, Aaron Judge hit a mammoth shot, 467 feet. I don't know if it's the second or third deck. He went 4 for 4, three doubles, and a walk. The sleeping giant is now awake. Is he back in the driver's seat as AL MVP?
I love that he's awake finally, and the Yankees are the leading in the division and one of the first teams to 30 total wins, and they've done it without Aaron Judge being Aaron Judge. I'm glad that he's awake, and I'm glad that he's starting to produce the way that we know that he can, but he's got some catching up to do if we're going to put him in that AL MVP race. And that's just because there's some stiff competition out there that's been doing it all season. But I'm glad to see in the short term, Judge is finally starting to put some pop back on that bat.
Absolutely. I mean, he's on the up and up, and I think it's just quietly. I think he's at up to 11 home runs, just very sneaky.
Mhm.
So, yes, Juan Soto's there, Bobby Witt Jr. there, Gunnar Henderson. Like there's great competition, but this is definitely going to help put the trajectory and put him there. So maybe not quite yet there, but close.
I got a question for you here, Matt. I got your boy Mason Miller doing incredible things over in Oakland. With him being the closer that they've really needed, what are your thoughts on Oakland using them doing the Oakland way and putting him as a trade piece to maybe get some more assets back?
Um, I think he's their best trade chip. I mean, they don't have anyone that's a sexier name and a more highly valuable piece than him right now. And there's rumors of what they might be asking in return, which is two top 100 prospects or something of that regard. I don't know if they'll fully get there, but I mean, I'm just more intrigued on where he would go. The
Yeah.
Dodgers, the Orioles, the Phillies. There's closers at these locations, and he could come in and be the top dog. So, where do you think he falls before the deadline, if he moves at all?
Oh man, if I'm a team that's having bullpen issues and I have the trade capital to go get him, you have to go all in. He's that guy where if you got strong starting pitching and you need to bridge the gap, he's going to be it. I think actually that he could do something kind of like Chris Sale did back in the day, to where, and I'm thinking of Madison Bumgarner, where you've got a starting pitcher or even a reliever who ends up throwing many, many innings in the postseason just because he's got the hot hand. I'd love to see him. I'd love to see him play for a team that is more relevant. And that's just unfortunately the way that it is with the A's. Where he lands, I'm not quite sure. We'll have to see as we get a little bit closer. But if I know anything about the A's, they're going to try and get back as much as they can for this. So we're going to have to do a deep dive, maybe another segment for who's got the trade capital to actually make this deal work.
Fair enough. On to question 4. Who is the first team to get 40 wins? You currently have Philadelphia at 31. The Yankees won yesterday and went to 30. The Dodgers lost yesterday and stayed at 29. So Phillies at 31, Yankees at 30, Dodgers at 29. Who is the first to get to 40?
Oh man, that's a good question. I'm gonna say New York. I think with Judge heating up, you've got Cole, on his rehab coming back. I think that the Yankees are gonna start fighting their stride, and Soto is just doing his thing over there. So I'm gonna take the Yankees on this one. What do you think?
I want to take Yankees as well. I don't think Cole comes back until maybe end of the month, early next month.
Mm,
So I'm going to stick with Philadelphia. I don't know. I mean, I really don't know how long Christopher Sanchez will hold on as looking like an ace. But given Aaron Nola, Zach Wheeler, I think Philly just has too much with Bryson Stott, Alec Baum, Bryce Harper. Castellanos is kind of waking up. Like I'm gonna say Philly. They have a little bit of a lead, but I'm gonna say that.
there you go. Last question on a rapid fire. Who will win the AL West? You've got the Mariners and Rangers, 1.5. They've lost the last 5 of 6. Athletics 5.5, and Astros 5.5 back. Angels aren't even relevant. What do you think about the AL West that has really kind of deteriorated in front of us? Is not the powerhouse it was.
Um, Right. With the Astros not in it, it doesn't quite look as sexy, Astros Rangers. But I don't know. I'm excited that the Mariners are leading, but just given it's really like, can they hold on? They're
Mhm.
currently, leading with the Rangers 1.5 back, but they've lost 5 of their last 6. And you have the Athletics and Astros 5.5 games back. The Astros on a bit of a charge. So um, man, I want to say Rangers because they're going to get Scherzer back and that'll help. But I
Mhm.
don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm actually rooting for Seattle. I think that Seattle is just such a fun baseball town. The fan base kind of goes up and down as they float with the wind. But I think that they will be a fun team to watch in the playoffs. As we're going to talk about shortly, they're going to have to get over their own shortcomings to make that happen. But I'll take the Mariners. The Rangers got to kick into gear, and personally, I don't mind that the Astros are not the same team they once were.
Well, then that leads us into what we are watching this weekend. And speaking of Seattle, that is one of the teams we're highlighting this weekend between Seattle at Baltimore. What are your initial thoughts on this matchup? Two really good teams going at it.
This is kind of an too early playoff preview. Seattle being a very good pitching team, and the Orioles being a very well-rounded team. I think this is going to be a good test to see where does each team kind of stand at this point in the race. And as we brought up earlier, Seattle may be one of those teams that wants to trade for Mason Miller to bridge that gap that they may have with their excellent starting pitching, and then making sure that bullpen is reinforced because they don't quite slug the same way as they do other teams. But I think that this series is going to be a lot of fun to watch in a preview. What are you taking a look at with this game or with this series, and what do you think to expect from both teams?
Initially, I want to see a pitching duel. I mean, both of these teams are top 10 as far as team ERA and average. So they've got the guys. I mean, especially 1 through 3. I mean, you could argue 1 through 5 for Seattle. Surprisingly, Baltimore has the pitching to go along with the hitting. I mean,
Hmm.
Baltimore is number 1 in home runs, number 9 in team runs. But Seattle's right, not too far behind, but it's just amazing to see Baltimore now has arms and bats. So I want to
Yeah.
see if that consistency can continue.
Yeah, most definitely. And that's what we're going to be watching this weekend. We're going to be watching Seattle at Baltimore. That seems to be a really fun series setting up what could be a fun playoff match. Well, we want to thank you for joining us on Dugout Dialogue today. My name is Blake.
And I'm Matt.
Thanks again for joining in. We hope to see you on our next episode. You can connect with us on all of our social medias: X, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, or you can send us a good old fashioned email at dugoutdialogue@gmail.com. Have a wonderful weekend, Matt, and we'll see you on the next video.
Take it easy.
See you, bud.